Mrs. Doe. I'm really glad that you were able to come and meet with me today so I can go over with you some of the observations I've made on Andy recently. Let me first start by saying he's an awesome little boy. I really enjoy having him in my class. He really enjoys being at school and playing with his classmates. He's just very easy to get along with. He likes to follow the rules and interact with his friends, and he likes to participate. He enjoys, participating in class activities. So what I would like to do today, you have in front of you a copy of my narrative that I wrote up of the observations that I've recently made of Andy, and I would like to go over them. What this report is about is it summarizes by the 5 different development areas that all children go through. And I would like to go through each one of those areas, and we'll talk about where Andy is really strong and maybe some areas that he can start working on for the next level of development. And if at any time during this process you have any questions or like to make your input, that please do. You as a parent know your child best, and so any input is greatly appreciated. So the first area that we're going to talk about is gross motor. Now, Andy, he is really right on track in this area. He runs easily, he goes up and down stairs, alternating his feet without, he can hold on to the rail. He throws the ball, he kicks the ball. He can play with ride-on toys out on the playground without any assistance. And he can catch a ball. He catches a ball though, like if you hold out his hands and throw it in, that's how he catches it. Where we want him to get is to be able to catch it with his hand. So for gross motor, that, as of right now, that's really the only area that I see that you might start working on him with at home, is to, when he catches, to catch with hands rather than you having to throw it into his arms. You have any questions about that first area? Okay. So the next area is fine motor development. That's like holding pins and manipulating things with his fingers. So for those things, Andy, again, he's right on track. He does an awesome job of zipping and unzipping his jacket, totally unassisted, and that's awesome for him to be able to do that. I can tell you've been working with him on that at home. And he also, when I help him trace his name during sign-in, he knows the correct way to hold a writing utensil. He holds his marker and he traces his name. So he's right on track with that too, with this fine motor development. The next step that I would see, one area that he could start working on, is he's got the zippers mastered. So the next thing is buttons. If you can start with larger size buttons if you have at home, and help him develop or start button clothes or anything that you have at home that has a button, just let him start practicing with that. So he's really, with his gross and fine motor development, he's really right on track and is doing awesome. Social development, again, Andy, he does very well. He likes to play with his classmates, and if he's in a group setting, he doesn't have problem taking turns and waiting for another classmate to have a turn and then it's his turn. He does not have a problem with that, so that's really great that he's able to do that. And he's not shy about trying new things. If you say, hey Andy, you want to look at this, he'll come right over, and he might want to look a little bit first before he jumps right in, but he still does not hesitate to join in. And it's just evident, his overall social and emotional, you can tell he just really enjoys being at school. I know every now and again, when you bring him in, he may cry right when you leave, but it's over like that. And he is ready to join in and participate in school. So for him, in the next area here, that one area that I haven't really seen him do is role play. Like you play the parent, or you play the child and he would play the parent. So we try in class when I play with the kids, like if there is a doll, do you want to feed the baby? Or so maybe that's something you could start working when you play, not necessarily working, but when you play with Andy at home, to say, hey, you be the parent and you fix me dinner and I'll be the student, or I'll be the child and you can give me, or you pretend to drive me to school, or so those are some of the things that you could start working on in that social and emotional that he sees can play the role of someone other than himself. Cognitively, in the cognitive development area, let me stop. Are there any questions so far? So we've gone over gross motor and fine motor, and then social emotional. Is there anything you'd like to add, or you're good? Okay, that's great. The next area, our fourth area, is the cognitive development area. And this is, colors, shapes, and so forth. And what, for Andy and his classmates, the areas that we're looking for, can he identify colors? And we introduce this in the beginning of the day when they sign in. They have to select a certain color marker or color of the week. And he does that. Andy can pick from a field of 10 different markers. He can pick the color that I've asked him to pick. So he does really great with that. And he also, he's beginning to understand the concept of numbers. We were on a playground one day and I was playing with some kids with sidewalk chalk, and we were sitting there writing their names. And I would ask the kids, would you like to count the letters in your name? And Andy did. And he would point to the first letter and then the next one. And we counted 1, 2, and he's saying the number in 3, and then he kind of hesitated with 4. So he's starting to understand the concept of counting. And also within the cognitive development, we look to see if kids can follow multi-step instructions, not just one, like put your book back up. Can we tell them 2 or 3 instructions at the time? And he can. An example is like when we go to the cafeteria, the first thing our students need to do is walk to the sink, stand in line, and wash their hands. And then when they're through, go sit at the table. So when we walk in, I was like, okay, go line up, and when you're done, and wash your hands, and when you're finished, come to the table. And Andy can do that quite well. He doesn't need to be redirected. He stays focused and follows the instructions there. So again, in the area of cognition, the things you could start working on with him is just continue to practice counting. If you're in the kitchen with him and there are 4 cups on the counter, count those cups. Andy, hey, you want to count with me? And either you point or he points and say, you say 1, 2, or let him take the lead, whichever you would like to do. And practice back the number of tires on the car. Just make it a part of your daily routine. Don't feel like you have to set aside a certain amount of time that you have to do this. There are enough opportunities that present themselves during your regular routine that you can practice counting with him. And also, this kind of goes back to the role play. See, when you're playing with Andy, pretend play. Hey, let's say, hey, let's pretend to be dinosaurs, or because I'm pretty sure Andy likes playing with dinosaurs in our classroom. Or let's pretend that we're gonna go ride a motorcycle, or that we're driving a race car, and pretend. And again, that role play and fantasy play. Let's start introducing that to him, and I'm sure he'll catch right on to that because he loves to play. Any questions about the cognitive area? And then the last area of development that we need to talk about is language. And Andy's ability to understand what he's told is on track. Never does he, if I tell him to do something, he knows what I'm talking about and really doesn't need me to say it a second time. So his ability to listen and follow directions, he's right on track. Where in language, where his weakest point is right now is that his vocabulary is really small. He doesn't have a lot of words yet. And that's, it's not of concern. We just need to make sure both in classroom and at home, let's give him expose him to as much language as we can. So in class, we read books, we talk. If I'm playing, I say, hey, I think I'm gonna go make a cake. I said, first I need to get out a pan. So I talk through what I'm doing. And that just, not that I expect Andy to do that, it mimic those words, but it exposes him to language. And that's how kids learn. They just soak it up. And the more they hear spoken word or see us modeling how to talk and the kinds of words we use, that will help him grow his language, increase his vocabulary and begin to feel confident and comfortable with talking. So again, those were the 5 main areas. Andy is basically right where he needs to be. The area that needs the most focus, but again, not of concern, is his language, so we can increase his vocabulary. And though he's not behind cognitively, I think once that language increases his cognitive abilities, or his ability to role play and his imagination, he can verbalize his imagination, and it will just take off. So would you like to recap what we've talked about in the different areas? So to recap, the first we talked about is gross motor. And that's running, jumping, playing outside. And the area that I suggested for him to work on is catching. Right now, if I throw a ball to him, he holds out his arms, and I basically throw it in his arms. So if he can work on him grabbing the ball, the bigger the ball, the better, for him to start with. And then the next one was the fine motor area, holding a pencil or his zipper, which he has definitely mastered. And the next area there would be for him to start working on seeing if he can work buttons to button up a coat, whatever it may be that you have at home that he can practice on. And then the third area was the social emotional, and that was him, the role play of you playing with him, you be the child, let him be the parent. And he practices or pretends to make dinner and feed you, or maybe tucks you in and let him read you a book. Hold a book. I've seen him do it in class. He'll hold a book and look at it, let him read you a book. So that's the next step for him in that social emotional area. And then cognitive, which is more the academic type thing, is counting. Just in your daily routine, just practice counting with Andy. Say, hey Andy, come on, let's count and see. I wonder how many tires are on our car. Let's go count. Or how many fingers are on your hand? Let's count your fingers on your hand. And let him point or you point. And if he wants to verbalize, that's fine. If he doesn't, then you model and verbalize counting for him. And again, related back to the role play and the cognition areas to fantasy, have pretend play. If you're playing with him, say, hey, let's invite our friend Bob, and then have a pretend friend Bob that comes to play with you, or pretend to be a race car driver, whatever Andy likes that if he likes cars, then that's something that you can encourage him to do, and you can play with him like that. And lastly, the area that I think needs the most work, and again, let me reiterate, I'm not concerned, but he just needs the most work, is language and building that vocabulary, because in terms of understanding what you say, there's no issue there. He knows what you say and can follow in direction. It's just encouraging him to talk and build that vocabulary up. And the biggest way that you can do that, all of us can do that, is to model, is to talk through the things we're doing. We know what we're going to do when we go into the kitchen to load the dishwasher, or to make dinner, or get his bath ready for him. We know what we're going to do. So, but he may not, or he does, but it's good to say the words that go along with your actions, so he hears that language. And the more he hears language, the more he's going to soak it up, and then his language and vocabulary will grow, and then he will just soar even more than he is. Because like I say, Andy he's a joy to have in the class. He really likes being here and wants to participate, and that's just nice to have. Not that all of our students are like that, but he's a great little boy. And I thank you for coming. Do you have any questions? I have this that, I've written up kind of what we talked about in terms of where I see his next growth area in each of these areas that I will give to you to take home. So, and if you ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.